Tonight, Manchester United walked away from the Vitality Stadium with a 2-2 draw against Bournemouth. On the surface, that might sound like a fair result. A point on the road, a team fighting. But when you look closer, when you examine every single decision, every moment, every stat that came out of that game, the story is far more complicated than the scoreline suggests. Because Manchester United did not just draw that game. According to many experienced voices in English football, they were denied a victory by refereeing decisions that have now caused a national conversation about the standard of officiating in the Premier League. And on top of that, the defensive injury situation at Old Trafford is reaching a level that should genuinely concern every supporter watching tonight. So let us get straight into it. No filler, no wasted time. This is the full breakdown. Before we go any further, just think about what was at stake in this game. Manchester United are fighting for a Champions League spot. Every single point matters right now. A win at Bournemouth would have been huge. Instead, a 2-2 draw was the outcome, and the manner in which that draw happened has left the club furious, the football world divided, and the conversation about VAR burning hotter than ever. Now, here is what makes this even more painful. It was not just one decision that went against United. It was a series of moments all happening in the same game that added up to what many believe cost the club 2 points. And if you want the kind of deep, honest, no-nonsense analysis that actually helps you understand stories like this one, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel exists to give you the full picture, not just the headlines. Subscribe to Emma United Analyst and never miss a breakdown. Let us start from the beginning. Now, this one is interesting. A post circulated on social media from an account called UTD Bloke, and it quotes Liverpool manager Arne Slot as saying, and I am reading this directly so you understand exactly what was posted. The quote reads, "The FA needs to investigate Manchester United. Since they move up to third, they don't even let anyone go close to them." It then continues, "I am sad with the loss against Brighton, but the FA needs to investigate United." Now, let me be very clear about this. This post came from a fan account. It is not from a verified Liverpool Football Club source. It is not from an official press conference. There is no credible evidence that Arne Slot said these words. This is the kind of social media content that spreads quickly because it sounds dramatic. But as an analyst, I cannot allow unverified quotes to be treated as fact. What this post does tell us, however, is the mood in the wider football conversation. People are talking about Manchester United's rise toward third place. People are reacting to results around them, and the idea that rivals are watching United's position closely is very real. But I want you to approach any quote that comes from a fan account with no official source attached with caution. Always ask where the original clip is. Always ask for the press conference footage. That is what separates serious analysis from noise. Now, this one is confirmed. Sky Sports Premier League, a verified media outlet, reported that Manchester United are set to make a formal complaint to the head of referees at PGMOL. The claim is that Manchester United believe they should have been awarded a second penalty during the 2-2 draw at Bournemouth. The specific incident involves a challenge on Amad Diallo. United are adamant that what happened to Amad was a foul inside the penalty area that should have been punished with a spot kick. Now, the significance of this cannot be understated. Football clubs do not go to PGMOL lightly. Filing a formal complaint is a serious step. It means the club has looked at the footage, reviewed the angles and made an internal decision that the error was clear enough to challenge officially. The reality here is that Manchester United are not just venting frustration. They are putting their position on record. And when a club of Manchester United's size does that, PGMOL has to respond. This screenshot comes from a fan account called Mufsi Site P, and it predicts what is likely to follow. The post reads that Howard Webb, Chief Refereeing Officer for PGMOL, is expected to say, "It was a clear error. United's number 16 should have been awarded a penalty. I have contacted Manchester United to apologise." The account then adds its own commentary saying, "Expect this in a week's time," as if their apology would give United back 2 points. Now, let me separate the two things happening here. The prediction that Webb will acknowledge a mistake is based on a pattern that supporters have observed. PGMOL has acknowledged errors in the past, often after clubs complain. The frustration expressed in that comment about an apology being meaningless without the points is a sentiment shared by many. But here is my analytical point. An apology from PGMOL, if it comes, actually matters beyond the emotion. It creates a documented record. It adds pressure for accountability. It keeps the conversation going in a way that might influence how future decisions are handled. It does not fix last Friday night, but it is not meaningless either. The situation is that English football is at a crossroads with its officiating, and moments like this are what force the conversation forward. Alan Shearer is one of the most respected voices in English football. Former England captain, Premier League all-time top scorer. When he speaks on officiating, people listen. Here is what was reported. Shearer said, "I just think it has been terrible, and the standards of refereeing because of VAR are the worst we have seen for a long time, and they are only getting worse as well." He then said, "Last night was a poor decision for me, but it should have been a penalty." Now, this is powerful for one reason. Alan Shearer is not a Manchester United man. He has no reason to defend them out of loyalty. When someone with no emotional connection to the club looks at that footage and says it was a poor decision and it should have been a penalty, that carries real weight. The evidence from voices like Shearer suggests that this is not United being biased about their own situation. It is a wider failure of officiating standards that is now being criticised by people from all corners of the football world. Thierry Henry, former Arsenal captain, a man who spent a large part of his career at a club that is a fierce rival to Manchester United. His words here are significant precisely because of who he is. The quote reads, "Let us not pretend Manchester United were clearly robbed at Bournemouth. Some of those decisions are impossible to explain at this level," he continued. "If this is the standard, then PGMOL has to do much better. You cannot have this level of inconsistency in the Premier League." And then people talk about performances, but decisions like that change games. It is not acceptable. When Thierry Henry says Manchester United were robbed, that is not a small moment. That is one of football's most iconic figures, someone with zero incentive to favour United, making a clear statement about what happened. The implication is serious. If the standard of officiating is so poor that even rival legends are defending Manchester United, then there is a structural problem that goes beyond any single club's complaint. Bastian Schweinsteiger, former Manchester United midfielder, made a pointed observation about the Amad penalty decision. He said if that was a different team like City or Liverpool, they would have awarded a penalty without even checking the VAR. He added, "In what world will that not be a penalty? The officiating in the Premier League is just terrible." Now, Schweinsteiger played in England. He experienced Premier League football from the inside. His comment about how a different team might have been treated raises a question about consistency that is difficult to dismiss. The reality is that consistency is the foundation of fair officiating. If the same challenge results in a penalty for one team but is ignored for another, then supporters are right to question the standard. And from what was reported across multiple voices, the Amad incident appears to be exactly that kind of inconsistency. This is perhaps the most striking quote of the entire conversation. Jamie Carragher, former Liverpool defender, lifelong Liverpool supporter, a man who openly stated in this very post that he dislikes Manchester United as a club. He said, "As an ex-Liverpool player, as much as I dislike Manchester United as a club, I think the referee should have awarded a penalty for the Amad incident. What is the use of VAR at this point? They are destroying our game. Full stop." When Jamie Carragher is defending Manchester United's right to a penalty, the officiating has truly failed. This is not about tribalism or loyalty. This is about a professional who understands the game deeply, looking at a decision and saying it was wrong. The phrase, "they are destroying our game," is the most important part of that quote, because it frames the VAR debate not as a Manchester United issue, but as a threat to the integrity of English football as a whole. Now, not everyone was completely on Manchester United's side. Former Premier League referee Mike Dean offered a more balanced perspective. He said they will complain, but they did not complain when Diallo was not sent off in the Manchester derby. He added, "I think the two incidents are completely different. Maguire is a dead cert. It is a simple decision. It is easy. It is a sending off all day." On the penalty decision, Dean said the first one could have been a penalty, but there was doubt about how he went down. That is why he has not given it. I could see why he did not give it. And I can see why it is the referee's call. He concluded, "I understand they have made a complaint, but you have to backtrack as well, because they have had a few calls in their favour this year that have gone on the referee's call." Now, this is where analytical honesty matters. Mike Dean's point about consistency is fair. No club benefits every time, and his reminder that United have received decisions in their favour this season is a point worth acknowledging. However, the distinction Dean himself draws is important. He says the Maguire red card was a simple, clear decision. But on the Amad penalty, he acknowledges doubt. That doubt is exactly what VAR is designed to resolve. And the question being raised across the football world is why that doubt was not properly examined on the night. Paul Scholes, Manchester United legend and one of the most respected tactical minds in the game, was direct in his assessment. He was quoted as saying, "Harry Maguire, straight red card and penalty, but no review on Amad's foul. This is the current state of the Premier League." He then added, "The whole officiating team should be investigated. Manchester United should not let this slide. Scholes is speaking from a United perspective, so his loyalty should be acknowledged. But his core point stands on its own." The question of why one incident involving similar contact resulted in a red card and penalty while another did not even trigger a VAR review is a legitimate question about consistency that deserves a formal answer. Now let us shift to something positive, because within all the controversy, there was a moment of genuine brilliance that deserves recognition. LiveScore reported that Bruno Fernandes became the quickest Manchester United player to create 100 chances in the Premier League. Bruno achieved this landmark in 28 appearances. The previous record was held by Ryan Giggs, who did it in 29 appearances during the 2006 to 2007 season. 101 chances created in 28 games. That is an extraordinary output. It places Bruno in a category of creative players that very few in Manchester United's history have reached. As if the record above was not enough, CBS Sports Golazo reported another remarkable Bruno Fernandes achievement. Bruno Fernandes now has more Premier League goal involvements than Eden Hazard. Bruno sits on 137 goals and assists in the Premier League. Hazard finished his time in England with 136. The extraordinary detail is that Bruno reached this total in 22 fewer matches than Hazard. Eden Hazard is widely regarded as one of the finest players ever to grace the Premier League. For Bruno Fernandes to surpass his goal involvement tally and to do so in significantly fewer appearances is a statement about just how consistently elite Bruno has been for this club. LiveScore also shared a statistic that puts Manchester United's season in a different kind of context. Liverpool have now lost more league games than Arsenal and Manchester United combined this season. Liverpool have suffered 10 losses in the Premier League this campaign. Arsenal and Manchester United together have a combined total of 9 losses. Now, this matters for the Champions League race. Liverpool, despite their struggles, remain in the conversation. But this statistic shows that Manchester United's defensive record and resilience, even with all the injuries and setbacks, has held up in a way that compares favourably to some of the biggest names in the division. Brighton's Danny Welbeck made a light-hearted but interesting comment after his side's game against Liverpool. He said, "People say I always score against United. Today against Liverpool, it helped them instead, so maybe this time I was on their side." Welbeck's goal against Liverpool contributed to a result that benefited Manchester United's Champions League qualification hopes. The situation is that results elsewhere are moving in a direction that keeps United in a strong position for a top-4 finish. A report surfaced suggesting that Manchester United are planning to sign 2 midfielders in the summer transfer window. However, the observation made is that based on what has been seen throughout the season, injuries, inconsistency and lack of depth have exposed the midfield at times, suggesting that 3 signings may actually be required rather than 2. This is a significant point looking toward next season. The club appears to be planning a rebuild, and the debate around whether 2 signings are enough or whether 3 are needed is a conversation worth having based on the evidence from this campaign. Rio Ferdinand and Wayne Rooney, 2 of Manchester United's greatest modern players, both reacted to the refereeing performance on the night. Rio Ferdinand said, "Refereeing decisions in the Premier League are getting worse day by day. Amad Diallo was brought down with both hands, but no penalty was given." A few minutes later, Harry Maguire is punished for a similar incident and a penalty is awarded. Wayne Rooney added, "Amad was fouled, but the referee ignored it. Maguire's was not as obvious, but it still led to a red card and a penalty. The pattern here is consistent. Across different analysts, different former players, different perspectives, the same conclusion keeps being reached. The Amad incident was a foul, it was not reviewed." And the contrast between how that was handled and how the Maguire incident was handled points to a serious inconsistency at the heart of the refereeing performance that night. This is one of the more human and entertaining details from around the game. Matheus Cunha revealed something fascinating about Bruno Fernandes. Cunha said, "After I won the penalty, he asked if there was a way he could turn it into an assist for my goal. He is not competing with anyone this season, just chasing the record. That is the crazy part." Now, this tells you something important about Bruno Fernandes as a player and as a competitor. He is not just performing, he is actively tracking his numbers, looking for every possible way to contribute to a statistic. The fact that he wanted to convert a penalty into an assist for a teammate purely for the creative record shows the level of detail and ambition he brings to every single game. It also explains in part why his numbers are so extraordinary. He is thinking about contribution in ways that most players simply do not. Roy Keane, the former Manchester United captain, the man whose standards for wearing that shirt are legendary. He was quoted as saying Manchester United need to extend Casemiro's contract for at least a year. We all endured it when he lost his legs, so we cannot let him go now that he has found them again. Sign the contract, big boy. The reference to Casemiro losing his legs refers to the period where the Brazilian midfielder's form dropped significantly. The suggestion here is that Casemiro has returned to something closer to his best. And Kain's position is that the club should act on that and secure his future. Journalist Ben Jacobs provided some valuable context around the penalty debate. He noted that Bournemouth also had a penalty claim turned away in the first half, with Harry Maguire judged not to have pushed Evanilson in the back. Jacobs raised the question of whether PGMOL will view that incident and the Amad incident as involving similar types of contact. However, he also noted that Manchester United are adamant VAR made a mistake, primarily because the Bournemouth defender Adrian Truffer is seen to pull back and then push Amad in the relevant incident. This is the kind of nuanced detail that matters in these situations. The pullback and push combination, if that is what occurred, is a different type of contact from a simple disputed collision. United's case to PGMOL would likely rest on demonstrating exactly that distinction. Finally, a quote attributed to Zlatan Ibrahimovic commenting on Premier League teams that were eliminated from the Champions League. He was quoted as saying they spent more time mocking Manchester United for not qualifying for the Champions League than focusing on winning it. That is why they fail. There is a rule, never mock Manchester United. They never learn, Zlatan being Zlatan. But beneath the characteristic confidence, there is an observation about focus and distraction that carries some weight. The suggestion is that energy spent mocking United could have been better directed inward. Now, let us bring in the full defensive situation at Manchester United, because this is critical for what comes next. The situation across the backline is genuinely challenging. Patrick Dorgu has been recovering from a hamstring injury picked up against Arsenal at the turn of the year. He is not expected to return until April at the earliest. Noussair Mazraoui missed the Bournemouth game through illness, having also missed a training session during the week. Manager Michael Carrick confirmed that Mazraoui simply was not feeling well enough to play. His potential return date is April 13th against Leeds at home. Matthijs de Ligt has been absent since November with a back injury. When asked about the Dutch defender, Carrick gave a cautious update, saying it is difficult to say when he will return because backs can feel fine and then suddenly not be right again. His potential return date is also listed as April 13th against Leeds. Lisandro Martinez missed the Bournemouth game with a calf injury. However, Carrick offered an encouraging update on the Argentine, saying he is closer, a lot closer, and that he should be all right after the international break. His potential return date is April 13th against Leeds. And now, adding to all of that, Harry Maguire's red card against Bournemouth means he will serve a one-match ban. That ban will apply to the Leeds game on April 13th, removing him from the equation for that crucial match. The situation is stark. Manchester United are entering the international break with a defensive unit that is stretched to its limits. Multiple senior defenders are injured, their captain is suspended, and the next important fixture is still weeks away. The only silver lining is that the international break gives injured players time to recover. And if Lisandro Martinez can return for the Leeds game, as Carrick suggested, that would be a significant boost. But the picture overall shows a club that is managing an enormous amount of pressure across their defensive department while still competing for a Champions League spot, still producing record-breaking performances from their captain in midfield and still finding the strength to fight for points on the road. Let me bring everything together now. What happened at Bournemouth on Friday night was more than a 2-2 draw. It was a moment that exposed multiple layers of what Manchester United are dealing with right now. On the refereeing side, the evidence from across the football world is remarkably consistent. Multiple former players, multiple analysts, multiple voices with no loyalty to United all looked at the same footage and reached the same conclusion. The Amad incident should have been reviewed. It likely should have been a penalty. And the contrast between how that situation was handled and how the Maguire red card was handled raises serious questions about consistency that PGMOL will need to answer. Manchester United filing a formal complaint to PGMOL is the right response, not just for their own benefit, but for the integrity of the league. Accountability in officiating requires clubs and individuals to challenge errors formally on the record. On the performance side, the Bruno Fernandes records are genuinely remarkable. 101 chances created in 28 games, 137 goal involvements, surpassing Eden Hazard in 22 fewer appearances. Whatever else is happening around the club, Bruno is operating at a level that belongs in the conversation about the Premier League's finest ever creators. On the injury front, the situation demands careful management over the international break. The potential return of Lisandro Martinez for the Leeds game would change the defensive picture meaningfully, but until those players are back on the pitch, the squad is operating with a level of defensive fragility that requires the manager and the remaining fit players to be absolutely focused. And on the wider picture, Liverpool losing 10 league games this season, more than Arsenal and Manchester United combined, tells its own story about how the table is shaping up. Manchester United are in third place. They are fighting. And despite every obstacle in front of them, the numbers and the performances suggest they are still capable of finishing the season strongly. This is Emma United Analyst. Thank you for watching. If this breakdown gave you a clearer picture of everything surrounding that Bournemouth game, make sure you are subscribed, hit the like button and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think PGMOL will acknowledge the error? Do you think the formal complaint will make a difference? But let us talk about it. I will see you in the next one.